really, we ended up doing 9 revisions of that LOI with the seller. And so by the time we got to the end of it, we had pretty much negotiated the key parts of the deal. I mean, we couldn't have closed with an LOI, but it was fairly well negotiated. I mean, we had, provisions for networking capital. We had, the non-compete. We had, a ton of different stuff, including, trying to talk to some of the key people that are in the firm, kind of laced up and buttoned up. So by the time we got there, we had actually done a degree of due diligence. They didn't turn over everything, but they turned over some things before LOI. And then, of course, by the time we got going, I think it took us a month or so to get through the LOI revisions. And so by that time, I'd already talked to the service providers that we were going to use, and we were pretty much ready to rock and roll. So it got inked, and we jumped right in and did. We didn't really have to do an entire QOE, but we did do an audited set of financials and network and capital, verification and those types of things. They did a proof of cash. The business is super simple in terms of how it bills. We get a contract, send an invoice, that invoice gets paid. That's it, right? It's a very basic, no inventory, simple stuff. So we got that going pretty quickly. We hired attorney, and they went through and did some of the due diligence in the contracts. So one of the huge values, this is there's large government contracts, and there's large private sector industry enterprise business too. The overwhelming majority of the business is actually in the government contracts. And so those government contracts go with the company. So we had to do a stock sale. Mm-hmm. As the result of that, we had to really diligence those contracts, because it's things like, federal GSA schedules and contract vehicles that are required to do business in certain states. And there's like 10 contracts there. Without those contracts, you can't really do business in the government sectors in those states. And so it was hugely important. Getting those is a challenge. There's cost associated with them, and maintaining them was going to be very important. So we did a ton of transfer due diligence, if that was going to work, if that was going to be okay. And same thing with the customer contracts that were in place that had, I think we had 16 months on one of them and something like 9 months on another one that was worth about 2.1 in future, or what they call backlog revenue.
Yeah, that's always good to hear. I kind of try to harp on people on the front end. You get a lot of searchers that just kind of shotgun LOIs out, right? Or they find something that they like and they're like, here's a 2-page LOI. Hearing that there was 9 revisions, I'm sure you'd probably agree, but that definitely, kind of creates conversation. It creates due diligence. It creates, thought processes, and you're getting the seller to really understand they're selling the business. You're hitting on a lot of the major points that are likely to come up in a contract. And oftentimes what I see when someone sends out a 1 or 2-page LOI is, okay, you've got an LOI. Now you're moving forward, and there's 30, 40 things that need to be discussed. And if you're going forward and you're spending money on due diligence, you're spending time and energy on all of these things, and then you bring up one of those key items and the seller says absolutely not, well, you just wasted all this time. So I'm glad to see you did it the right way by having the 9 revisions, which isn't fun, but at least you got to that point quickly. Yeah.
Yeah. And one thing we did include in our LOI is, because we knew we were going to have to do a stock sale transaction, we needed to also do the F reorg or 336E. I can't remember which one we did, but it all depends on whether it's a C Corp going to S Corp or the other way around type deal. We had to do that tax treatment here in order to get the cost basis for ourselves. And so that requires that the seller and his CPA do some work. And so if you're going to have that happen, you're going to have that happen, you may as well agree to it up front so that there's no surprise. And that's exactly right. We thought about anything that could be a snag down the road, and we put it in the LOI. And I think we did a pretty darn good job of including really everything. I don't think there was any surprise. We put a range in for networking capital. He agreed to the high end of it. I mean, it was just really altogether, it was a good prep exercise for sure.